Here are 10 facts about Goldfinger that the Bond fans didn't even know. Number 10. OddJob's deadly hat. Sometimes, movie magic begins with complete randomness. The director of Goldfinger, Guy Hamilton, sat in a pre-production meeting when a man casually flipped his hat onto a hat stand. That single moment sparked a wild idea. What if someone could throw a hat just like that and kill with it? Just like that, OddJob's deadly bowler hat was born, part fashion statement and part deadly murder weapon. It wasn't written in the script. It wasn't part of Bond's gadgets. It was an inspired accident that turned into one of cinema's most recognizable villain trademarks. However, OddJob's menace didn't stop there. Goldfinger's crew took the laser scene to a whole new level. Number 9. The laser scene. From a killer hat to a killer beam, one of the most unforgettable moments in Goldfinger almost looked completely different. Bond, strapped to a table, as a glowing laser beam inches toward him. It was both pure tension and pure cinema, leaving the audience hooked. But that wasn't the original plan. In the early script, the scene used an old-fashioned buzzsaw. The team quickly realized it felt too cartoonish, too cliché, so they swapped it out for a laser the world had barely seen. What could have been more captivating? Back in the 1960s, lasers were cutting-edge tech. Literally, they symbolized the future, science, and danger. That one creative change transformed an average scene into one of the most iconic sequences in movie history. Let's be honest, a buzzsaw just wouldn't have had the same effect. And while that laser sliced its way into pop culture, another piece of Bond's identity was being forged on 4 wheels. Number 8. Bond almost drove a Ferrari? Everyone knows James Bond's famous silver car, the Aston Martin DB5. But here's the shocker. That wasn't his first choice. In Ian Fleming's novels, Bond drove a Bentley. When the filmmakers started scouting cars for Goldfinger, they considered everything from Ferraris to Alfa Romeos. And eventually, they settled on the Aston Martin DB5, the car that would become the definition of James Bond himself. Funny thing, Aston Martin wasn't all too crazy about it. The company even charged the film's producers for using the cars. But when Goldfinger finally hit theaters, sales of Aston Martin skyrocketed by 50%. From that point on, Aston Martin never charged the Bond franchise ever again. What better way to publicize the company, right? But Bond didn't just drive the car, he made it a legend. And speaking of legends, the next secret fooled an entire nation. Number 7. The Fort Knox. You'd think a movie about gold would have at least seen the inside of Fort Knox. Not even close. No one, not even the President of the United States, has ever been inside that vault. So, production designer Ken Adam had to build one from scratch, and what he created was absolutely jaw-dropping. The Fort Knox set was a massive, shimmering cathedral of gold bars and steel vaults. It looked so authentic that it had the round-the-clock security. Here's the best part. It fooled people. Viewers were so convinced that the production team had filmed inside the real Fort Knox that they actually wrote letters to complain that a British film crew had been granted access. That's when it dawned on the crew that their set design was flawless. And as those fake gold bars gleamed on set, a soundtrack that would soon be heard around the world was just around the corner. Number 6. Michael Caine heard the Goldfinger score before anyone else. Before Goldfinger exploded in theaters, another future legend was having a rough time. A young Michael Caine had just moved to London and was struggling to pay rent. Desperate, he crashed at the home of composer John Barry, the man responsible for the unforgettable Goldfinger score. One morning, Barry shook him awake and said, "I've just finished it. Want to hear it?" Caine sat there at breakfast, listening as Barry played through the now iconic soundtrack for the very first time. It was beautiful. But before the world heard Shirley Bassey's voice soar, before cinemas echoed with that powerful brass section, John Barry got the first listen. Although John Barry couldn't believe his ears, Bond's perfect image had a secret hidden beneath it. Number 5. Sean Connery's hairpiece secret. To the world, Sean Connery was Bond, confident, sharp, and untouchable. But what most fans never realized was that by the time he first donned the tuxedo, Connery was already losing his hair. He began balding in his early 20s. In Dr. No and From Russia with Love, the filmmakers cleverly used camera angles and lighting to conceal it. But by the time Goldfinger rolled around, it was impossible to hide. So, Connery started wearing a discreet toupee. It became part of his Bond identity, though audiences never suspected a thing. It was one of those fascinating Hollywood illusions, proof that sometimes the smallest details have the greatest charms. While Connery was mastering his image, Ian Fleming was saying his final goodbye. Number 4. Ian Fleming's visit. In April 1964, James Bond's creator, Ian Fleming, stepped onto the set of Goldfinger at Pinewood Studios. He watched as the crew filmed the pool scenes at the Fontainebleau Hotel, feeling amazed to see the story he once imagined become a reality. Less than a month before the movie's release, Fleming passed away, sadly never getting to see the finished work that would define his most famous character for decades to come. It was a bittersweet moment, but his creation would live on. Speaking of immortality, Shirley Eaton's scene might just be the most unforgettable in film history. Number 3. The Golden Girl was actually painted gold. Have you ever seen the image of a woman lying lifeless, covered entirely in gold paint? It's haunting, beautiful, and instantly recognizable. But here's the shocking truth. Actress Shirley Eaton was really painted head to toe in metallic gold. The makeup team coated her skin completely, and because of the health risks, a doctor was kept on set to monitor her breathing and prevent skin suffocation. It was risky, but it paid off. The scene became one of the most iconic in all of cinema. The sight of Jill Masterson's golden body, or Goldfinger's assistant and accomplice, wasn't just striking. It symbolized greed, obsession, and the deadly allure of wealth. And it turned Goldfinger into a true visual masterpiece. But the woman wasn't the only one whose real-life experience mirrored the character's strength. OddJob, who killed her, had quite the backstory himself. Number 2, OddJob had odd jobs. Before Harold Sakata threw the razor-edged hat on screen, he was tossing much heavier things. A professional weightlifter and wrestler, Sakata was a Japanese-American athlete who even won an Olympic silver medal before ever stepping in front of a camera. Goldfinger was his very first film role, and it made him a star overnight. His calm brutality, quiet presence, and sheer physicality made OddJob unforgettable. The role launched him into a whole new career, from the wrestling ring to television and commercials. Not bad for a man who started out lifting barbells instead of scripts. But as Sakata was stepping into fame, Connery, who fought him on screen, was living a story just as extraordinary behind the scenes. Number 1. Sean Connery. Sean Connery didn't just play Bond, he was Bond, long before the cameras rolled. At 16, he enlisted in the Royal Navy, serving as an anti-aircraft gunner aboard the HMS Formidable. After being discharged due to an ulcer, he turned to bodybuilding, competing in Mr. Universe contests. He even played semi-professional soccer for Bonnyrigg Rose and was offered a trial with Manchester United, but Connery turned it down because he wanted to act. That choice changed film history forever. While time eventually caught up with everyone else, it seemed to only make Connery more magnetic. In 1989, People magazine named him the sexiest man alive, at 59 years old, embodying the very essence of James Bond: strength, sophistication, and timeless charm.